I did miss the entire second quarter and about half of the third because of basketball practice last night.
That'll happen to you.
But Demers and Calabro helped fill in the gaps for me as I came back and watched and listened to the game. Scooter had a great game. Scoot Henderson was great in this thing. He was taking the Knicks to the cup. He was getting and ones.
Magic Johnson.
He was coming off the bench. 10 of 16 from the field, 30 points. Would have had more assists if the other point guard that gets to start wasn't 2 for 11 from the field. That would have
knocked down a shot or two. He had a sequence in the third quarter where he hit. Somebody kicked it to him in the corner. He knocked down a three. And then there was like a 30-second melee where they just refused to call a foul on anybody going both ways. And I'm like, are we going to call a foul here? And somehow he ended up with the loose ball and had a awesome two-handed dunk. And that was one of the cooler stretches.
They went to overtime in this one. If you would have seen the end of the game, Karl Anthony Towns had back-to-back threes, put him up 6 with 1:08 left. Scoot hits a three, cuts it to 3, and eventually they end up tying the game, and they go to OT. And Swag, do we have the final? Okay, so we go to overtime, and Mike Breen is the usual voice for the Knicks when he's not calling the national game. And so Portland is up 2. There is it's 3.4 left.
3.4 seconds left.
And they inbound to Mikal Bridges, and this happens.
Bridges to inbound. Knicks break. Hart gets it right back to Bridges. Bridges puts up a three. Bang! Bang! Mikal Bridges wins it at the buzzer. What a finish.
Madison Square Garden going crazy last night.
Loud Knick fans in that building last night.
Wrong garden.
Garden.
Well, it's not a garden anymore.
It should be a garden.
It's a center.
Yeah, it's true.
We don't have a center. We might have a center, but he can't play 20 minutes, so we go to the center.
It'll always be the garden to me.
I wish it was the garden. Oh, why couldn't we keep it the Rose Garden presented by Moda?
I mean, I thought that yesterday because they did the Anthem thing at the start of the game.
Rose Garden logo was sweet, too.
It was perfect.
The font was perfect.
The Rose Garden brought to you by the Moda Health. Like, I just,
good.
find a way to hit a sweet spot here. But I didn't think about that with the Anthem stuff they were doing at the start of the game with the gal coming back from 2003.
Yeah, because Mo Cheeks is an assistant on the Knicks.
That was a really well-played thing. There was a part of me when I saw that happening, I was like, what if she would have messed up again? Like, what are the odds on that? Like, I finally get I'm sure she's been singing forever. She's got a beautiful voice. And so she's probably sung a million national anthems in her life.
It wouldn't be
What
as
is
cute.
she, 30, 32, 33 now?
I mean, she looked like she was probably 15 in 2003, I would guess.
12 or
was she 12?
13.
Okay, so 12 or 13 in 2003. So do the math there. So she's probably about my age.
Well, now Mo Cheeks hurts to get up to help her. He's like, I'm coming. I'll be right there.
I'm surprised he wasn't out there.
They did a thing pregame.
Yeah.
They met together and took a photo and hugged.
Yeah,
they knew he was going to be in town, and so they did a thing pregame with him. But I did have that thought because I was reminiscing about that 03 playoff series against Dallas, and they showed a little graphic, and it was the Rose Garden.
Much like Walton night, they planned it when Luke was going to be here.
Perfectly
that
timed.
I understood. How did that go, by the way?
Great.
Okay.
2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
Well handled.
It was perfect. A Walton won.
Yeah.
We lost.
Right.
We got a ping pong ball back, and it was a great game.
Yeah.
It was exactly like this game.
Very
This game
good.
was a great game.
Yeah.
I said at the start of the show, I have Knicks fans in my life. They went to this game. Unreal game. Anytime you go to a game like that environment, your team's not the underdog in Vegas per se, but like the underdog in the building.
Yeah.
There's more people rooting against you, and they win like that, and you got an extra quarter of basketball, like... Man, you walk out of that thing riding a high. You don't go to bed till midnight when you're a Knicks fan.
I mean, it was a little too close to call for me because you know where I'm at in the final 16 games of the season, especially with everything that transpired around the league last night. Like, this was the perfect storm, and so I want to give a big thank you to Mikal Bridges, but it ended up being one of the best games of the year. I mean, that one and probably the Cavs game, I would say. Now, I know they were both losses for the Blazer fans that are rooting for wins.
That Pistons game was pretty
Pistons
good, too.
games was really good, too.
Games.
But those are the two that stand out the most. That was an unbelievable game.
This is they're ass, but they're not that bad.
But they're not that bad.
This is where that plays in.
No doubt about it. And I think it would be a great night to point to. Now, there's still one lingering sore thumb, and for some reason he played 31 minutes last night, but hey, how cool was it to see Scoot, Shaden, Denny, and Klingon on the court at the same time?
That was kind of the
and those guys
group.
were playing
Yeah.
well and playing with effort, and all of them had relatively good nights. Klingon, I know, didn't have a great offensive performance, but he was good on the glass, had a couple of blocks.
Shots, yeah.
You had Tumani, who was good defensively, a good night. Denny was awesome. Shaden had a really good night, and Scoot had one of the best games of his career. Like, it was too close to comfort for me because San Antonio won last night, and so you now have jumped them in the standings. We now have the 9th worst odds with this loss. So thank you again to Mikal Bridges, but really fun to see that young core play together.
A couple of things on some of the younger guys. I didn't think Shaden actually did have that great of a night.
Okay.
Just from a shooting percentage-wise, the number I really like from Shaden is 9.
Yeah. He's been grabbing a lot of rebounds lately.
Going and getting rebounds is when you have that. Steve Kerr said this to Anthony Edwards in that USA basketball Netflix doc. I don't know if you've seen it, but they're at practice, and Ann Edwards is talking to Steve Kerr, and Steve Kerr was just like, "You're so good. Next thing you need to do, the next step for you, go get it.
Yeah, find a different way to impact the game.
You are 6'5". You have one of the best verts in the league. Like." You're physically built. You can go to the glass and get. That's the next step for you. And that's what I would say about Shaden. He's not as built as Ann Edwards, but he can jump 46 inches. He's 6'5.5", 6'6", depending on the shoes he's wearing. 9 rebounds is fantastic. He should be, what's he averaging on the year? He should be averaging 7.
That's a trend for him, too, lately. He's been really good grabbing
good
boards.
at putbacks.
He's only averaging 4 a game on the season.
That has to get to 6.5, 7 to
and
me.
this month, though, in the month of March, where they played, 7 games maybe?
So far, yeah.
He's averaging almost 7 rebounds a game.
That's the
He's
sweet
gotten
spot.
11 boards against Philly. He had 7 the other day in the loss to Golden State. He had 9 last night.
When you can jump the way he can jump, not only do you get the putback dunks or the easy little putbacks that you drop in, but you just jump higher than everybody. So he didn't have the greatest, most efficient shooting night. He was, 3 players basically scored the bulk of their points. They had 41 lead changes, if I'm correct, in this game.
Every time somebody looked like they took control, the other team would come back.
It was just a back-and-forth battle. Like, as soon as the Knicks would go up 8, big run by the Blazers. Then the Knicks took the lead, and then the Blazers. 41, I believe, Habistro had it on the Habistat of the most lead changes.
42, I'm looking at the box
42,
score
thank
right
you.
now.
42 lead changes.
Thank you. I tried to count, and then I lost count because it was late. 42 lead changes, the most in any game this season. The one other area I would say, because Scooter was really good. He was clutch. He looked in control, which is exactly how you want him to look. Tumani does this every once in a while, not often. He's a little over-aggressive, and he puts himself in these positions where he fouls out. And that... I'd have to go count how many games because it hasn't been many.
There's a balance there that you want to find.
But yeah, there's a little bit of he's still kind of learning physically with how aggressive he can be. And I thought he was fine last night. He finished with 14, but it's the fouling out part. It's like, need you on that court. Denny was really good. He got that and one at the end of the overtime, which made it feel like they were going to end up winning that game. But yeah, Tumani... little less aggressive. Keep yourself on the court. Shaden, rebound just a little bit more. Keep doing what you're doing now. And a great game from Scooter and Denny.
By my quick count, he has fouled out 3 times this year.
Right.
There's been a handful of times where he's been,
He's been close.
You're on 5.
Yeah.
There's a handful of games here where there's 5. And he hasn't quite committed the last one.
I'm finding a little thing here, but
no
it
doubt,
is
but
a little thing that I've been watching.
Yeah, look, the biggest takeaway for me last night was, one, thank God they lost. And secondarily, dude, good for Scoot, man. Good for Scoot. That guy's still coming off the bench. He had one of the best games of his career. It was an awesome atmosphere. He got to play crunch time minutes, which is something he has not been able to do for large chunks of the season. I brought up just this past week, they had the game in Oklahoma City where they were getting ran out of the gym last weekend. He comes out in the third quarter. He's outstanding. They cut the lead from 19 down to 6. Hey, look at that. We're back in the ball game. And he essentially doesn't play in the fourth quarter. The lead or the deficit balloons back up, and then we sub him in garbage time with 3 minutes to go. I just haven't understood it all year. These are the guys that you want to build your roster around. And so part of me wants to give them credit for finally giving this core rotation minutes together, while also criticizing them for the criminal act of not doing this in the first 64 games of the year very often. I don't know if there's a way to look up, but I'd be curious to know how many minutes per game Tumani, Denny, Donovan Clingan, Shaden Sharp,
can
and
look
Scoot
that up.
Henderson have played on the floor.
Give me a
Like, what's
second.
the average per game that those guys have seen? Because that was the one thing that kept me around last
How many
night.
times have they played together is what I want to look
Just
up.
in general,
Yeah.
right? And then let alone that many minutes as they did last night. Now, I know Ant came back in late, which, what are we doing? Like, he was terrible last night. Let's hold guys accountable. We're doing it for the other young players. Sit his ass down. He was terrible. Scoot was having a great night, and I'm with you on Shaden. It wasn't a wonderful night, but he was solid. The 9 rebounds were really good. Hit a couple of big threes here or there. It just was really good to see that young core play together, and it's something that myself and a lot of other Blazer fans have been advocating for. But at the end of the day, ultimately, like, look, I know some fans get tired of hearing about it, but that ended up being a perfect loss, man. San Antonio winning a game. You now have the 9th best odds in the draft lottery, and oh, by the way, you're tied with Chicago. So you have a legitimate
Chicago is really at the skids.
Chicago
though.
has hit the skids. It's not going to be easy to catch them, but you are within a puncher's chance of having the 8th best odds in the lottery, which is not top 5 like I wanted coming into the year, but it sure is a hell lot better than 11th or 12th, which is where you could still potentially end up depending on how your final 15 games go.
I'm trying to see. So far, I haven't found it. Avdia Clingan. Okay, so the lineup of Shaden, Scoot, Kamara, Avdia, and Klinger.
And Klinger.
They've had 83 possessions on the season.
83 possessions on the season.
Yeah, total.
How many possessions are in a basketball game?
That's actually a good question.
What's
I'm
the
gonna be bad
average?
at
We
that.
know that off the top of our head. You want to guess
From
that?
an NBA game?
From an NBA game. In
I'm gonna
one
guess
game.
around
100?
160, 170.
Yeah.
Okay. So they've played a half of a game together in terms of possessions.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There are 11 lineups that have had significantly more possessions together as a
Shocking.
group
Shocking.
this season than them.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's what you want to see.
Swag, during the break, could you do us a big favor? Could you check to see if Donovan Clingan is still alive?
Is he breathing?
He had to play 30 minutes last night. He's not ready for it. He can't do it. He did it, but he can't do it.
I'll check the hyperbaric chamber.
Thank you. We appreciate that.